guy.
He really could be, and that's one of these exciting situations for someone like Pao. Like, you are facing someone who has an incredible reputation and you could be intimidated by it, but at the end of the day, both these players have exactly the same chance as the other. It all comes down to how you've trained your Pokemon, what you're thinking going into the game, whether you can make those hard reads. It's just going to be an incredible experience for him nonetheless, and you never know. You never cast anyone out in this. It could be a phenomenal game.
Yeah, Pokemon can be anyone's game. And speaking of games, let's kick it into team preview. Lou, take it away with those teams.
So, as you can see on the left there on Pao's team, we have got a Mimikyu, Snorlax, a Alolan Persian, Tapu Koko, Kartana and Arcanine. Whereas on Arash's side we have Whimsicott, Tapu Koko, Garchomp, Arcanine, Tapu Fini and Celesteela.
Yeah, so this is a team that Arash has been comfortable playing with. He used it in the Liverpool Championship, and he's got a lot of points with it, so it doesn't seem to be doing too badly at this point. And he's got the option to use Nature Power once again with Whimsicott. So we're seeing the same thing from last round. Tapu Koko and Tapu Fini being the support options this time. And again, if he can deal with this this Arcanine on Powell's side of the field, Celesteela could be in quite a good position here. But Pao has some really interesting options to be able to set up that powerful Snorlax once again. So we could be seeing, it depends on what Mimikyu's running. It could be running a Ghostium Z like we saw in several rounds ago with the combination that we saw there, or Persian allowing for the fake out to be able to get the boost up as well. We could just be seeing a mental herb on the Mimikyu. So really interesting to see how Rash is going to be able to deal with what is a very powerful threatening combination on Powell's side of the field.
Indeed, it's such an iconic duo, that Mimikyu and Snorlax combination. You never sort of know what shenanigans it's going to get up to. That Mimikyu can do all sorts with Trick Room, with Z Destiny Bond, sort of acting as a follow me there to allow Snorlax to set up, whether it's a curse or a belly drum. You just never know what's coming out from those Pokemon, but whenever they're on the field, you can never underestimate them. So it'll be interesting to see if that is a strategy that Pao does want to sort of adopt going into this game, and whether Arash has the tools in his team to counteract it.
Round 5 is starting off right now for you at the Bilbao Special Championships. Whimsicott and Tapu Fini coming out for Arash against Mimikyu Snorlax.
It is that Mimikyu Snorlax combination, which I always personally love to see. I love Mimikyu's design as well. It's just so cute they're sitting on the field, but you should never underestimate it. As Jay rightly said, we also have the Whimsicott there and the Tapu Fini for Arash.
Yeah, so we could be seeing a taunt coming out directly from this Whimsicott going on to that Snorlax to just control the belly drum a little bit. He also has the opportunity to taunt the Mimikyu in case it wants to go for a Trick Room. So Pal needs to be very cognizant of that. Tapu Fini in a position where it can just start throwing off some high-powered attack damage as well with Muddy Waters or Scalds or Moonblasts. It's in a position where it's not really taking too much damage from Pal's side of the field.
Indeed, and Whimsicott here deciding to not deal out any moves. It just goes for a Protect here straight off in turn 1. As Mimikyu targets it down, I didn't quite see with the Spanish what
taunt.
it was. It was Taunt. And Tapu Fini here goes for a Calm Mind. So Arash deciding it's going to be setting up on his side of the field. And we see Snorlax here go for a Belly Drum, so set up moves across both sides of the field here. Snorlax going to reduce itself to 50% HP, boost its attack, and then have a little snack on its berry and restore itself to full HP.
Yeah, so Snorlax has managed to get its Belly Drum up, but we have an issue. The issue being Taunt on the Whimsicott. So Whimsicott protecting itself there, making sure that Mimikyu can't get a cheeky taunt onto that slot. Now that Snorlax is in a position where it's got the boost up, it could be encored into the belly drum here. So if it has Protect, now would be a good turn to use it, and then maybe Mimikyu can get the opportunity to get the taunt off onto Whimsicott. Tapu Fini with the Calm Mind was very nice here as well. Be able to start throwing out some damage if Whimsicott finds a way to deal with the Snorlax.
Exactly, because Pao cannot ignore that Whimsicott, as you said, with the taunt, with Encore. It's heavily threatening there, so Tapu Fini is just allowed to sort of sit there and set up. Whimsicott, however, leaving the field, not going to be dealing out any moves this turn, and we see Arcanine join the field, so it's going to lower the attack of Snorlax and Mimikyu by 1 stage. Not really going to affect that Snorlax too much, as it is got its attack stat now at +5. However, this turn it's just going to go for a Protect, probably predicting something coming out from that Whimsicott, as Mimikyu goes for a taunt into the Arcanine slot. We see Tapu Fini go for, it was a Muddy Water, and it avoided on the Mimikyu there, so Mimikyu's going to keep its disguise intact.
Yeah, so the Intimidate coming out onto the Snorlax, taking it down to just, a healthy +5 in physical attack. So Arash does need to worry about what this Snorlax is going to do here. Tapu Fini missing the Mimikyu, not being able to break the disguise is a bit rough. He needs to stop getting some big damage off here, and just making sure that he has the way to control Snorlax later on. But Snorlax in a position where he can start throwing out some big damage here. If Arcanine has Roar, then we could be seeing that this turn. So Snorlax might want to attack into that Arcanine just to cover that option. Tapu Fini, again, just needs to, it's got its boosts up. It wants to be doing as much damage as it can. We're actually going to see a Z move, though. We
do see a Z move come out, and it's going to be the Ghostium Z coming out from Pal's Mimikyu here. We've seen so many variations of this with the Destiny Bond there. Took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say the Never-Ending Nightmare, yep. That's the one. But it does go for the Z Destiny Bond as Arcanine fires off a powerful Flare Blitz. Not going to be doing damage to this Mimikyu at all, however, but it will be breaking that disguise that the Muddy Water failed to do on the previous turn. Sad little Mimikyu on the field there. As we see another Muddy Water come out from that Tapu Fini, this time connecting on both Pokemon on Pal's side of the field. So it's going to do good damage to the Mimikyu, taking it to below 50% HP, and it also gets that accuracy drop. Snorlax, however, going to do what Snorlax does best, fires off a really powerful frustration into that Arcanine, getting rid of any threat of the Roar going into the next couple of turns. Hey, it worked on stream earlier, why not make it work now? The Z Destiny Bond is proving really big here in Bilbao, and even though he wasn't able to take down the Tapu Fini with that move, now the Mimikyu is still stuck on the field. He wasn't able to get a free switch in to be able to threaten this Whimsicott coming in. But Snorlax being able to deal with Arcanine in such an easy fashion, really, really powerful here. Whimsicott in a position where it could launch its Z move or Encore Mimikyu into the Destiny Bond and just start single targeting down that Snorlax to make sure that Mimikyu can't really add any additional damage to anything. But Snorlax, again, really, really powerful, could just be dealing a big amount of damage to Tapu Fini if left unchecked. Exactly, it's one of those Pokemon that if you allow it to get set up on the field and remain untouched, it's just going to steamroll through your team. Whimsicott, though, it is such a little troublemaker of a Pokemon with its priority. And I think as well, for Pal, getting rid of that Arcanine could be crucial for him if he possibly has something like the Cortana in the back, perhaps, and he just wanted to get it off the field. We see him taking a long time to pick his moves there, really, really focused and thinking through them hard. And a Z move coming out from Arash. It's the Normalium Z Crystal on that Whimsicott. I believe we're seeing another Z Nature Power here, Jay. Yeah, you'd imagine so. So this Z Nature Power will convert itself into Moonblast and then into Twinkle Tackle. So a big amount of damage coming out from this Whimsicott, and it's such a reflexive Z move, and it gives you lots of options to be able to deal massive damage. And he's just going to go straight for the Snorlax here. So Snorlax has used up its berry, so it will be taking some nice chunk damage here. And if we see a single target going into this Snorlax from the Tapu Fini, this could be a knockout. And that's a great play from Arash there. Snorlax, obviously, seeing as it was at +5, was heavily threatening his team, so he doubles into it, removes it from the field as Mimikyu goes for a Trick Room. So all the speeds have been reversed, but unfortunately his best friend in Trick Room, Snorlax, has been KO'd. Yeah, so not too fun there for Pal. His main Trick Room option has been denied now, which is a real shame for him. I think he didn't want to protect there in fear of the Encore. So, Smart play.
Exactly. So Snorlax would then be useless under Trick Room, and he would have had to switch out and lose the boost that he needed. Arcanine coming in now does threaten some big damage against the Whimsicott, but it's got to deal with this Tapu Fini, which is boosted already. And Trick Room is not really helping Pal out in this situation. No, definitely. I mean, if Snorlax had managed to survive that turn, it could possibly have gone for something like a Recycle, and then would really have reaped the benefits from being in Trick Room. However, it's not sort of the main domain that Pokemon like Tapu Fini and Arcanine want to be in. And obviously Whimsicott with the priority, it's not bothered whatever the speed is on the field. Yeah, exactly. It could lock Mimikyu into Trick Room here and just target down the Arcanine later on in the game, or it could just knock it out with a Moonblast if it wanted to. So Arcanine is going to protect though. Arcanine does go for the protect, doesn't want to take any water damage from that Tapu Fini, as Whimsicott does go... The Z Nature Power, Nature Power, just the normal Nature Power this time, stays at Moonblast and goes into that Mimikyu slot, does pick up the KO as well. So that wonderful Mimikyu Snorlax lead we've seen has now been removed from the field, as Tapu Fini feels pretty safe here to set up another Calm Mind and just put itself into such a threatening position against this Arcanine. Yeah, I think Arash really enjoying the position that he's in right now. Just very safe for him to be able to knock out that Mimikyu or do massive damage to anything that wanted to come in. If it was the Persian, he'd get the knockout as well. Tapu Koko would take a lot of damage. The Kartana would break a potential Focus Sash, so there's not really good switch options for Pal in that situation. Arcanine now even more threatened by this Tapu Fini, with, unless it's got Wild Charge, no significant way to hit it back. Definitely, Wild Charge could be sort of the one trick that Pal needs up his sleeve at this stage, and it'll be really interesting to see what his fourth Pokemon is here. Obviously, he doesn't have a choice, he has to bring it in here, but he is taking his time, really utilising the timer there to think how he's going to play the next move.
Believe he has logged it in now, and it's going to be that Alolan Persian, a Pokemon that, you know, does have access to some great moves like Fake Out, but again, is not going to enjoy being in Trick Room at all.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of different versions of this style of team do well in regional championships and also in the World Championships, which is boost the Snorlax and protect it. So you could see that Mimikyu would set up Trick Room for it, and then Persian would probably be able to use Fake Out like now to be able to stop other Pokemon from attacking, and Arcanine to lower the amount of physical damage that Snorlax would take. But with Snorlax not on the field, Pal is really having to think about what he's going to do for game 2.
He really is, and that Arcanine in Trick Room is going to underspeed the Whimsicott. Does pick up the one-hit KO there with the Flare Blitz onto it, so Whimsicott will leave the field. Arcanine dealing itself some recoil damage there, as Tapu Fini obviously got flinched by that Fake Out, won't be able to threaten damage onto the Arcanine or the Persian, both of which are heavily threatened by Tapu Fini.
Yeah, Tapu Fini loving the position it's in right now, and yeah, Tapu Koko coming on the field as well. I mean, it doesn't like being under Trick Room, that's for sure, but with Tapu Fini being in a position where it's boosted up and has super effective damage on Arcanine, Tapu Koko in a nice spot to clean up once Trick Room ends, but it might not even get that far. I think Pal really should be thinking about what he's going to do for Game 2 and how to make sure that he deals with the combination of Whimsicott and Tapu Fini better.
Definitely, as we sort of seen in this game, he had to target down that Whimsicott. It threatened his team so heavily, but that just allowed Tapu Fini to sit on the field and get those boosts, which it is enjoying so much. Here we see it fire off a Muddy Water, does connect on both Pokemon, and with the boost, that is going to easily pick up the KO there on Arcanine. Does so much damage to Persian as well. Does get the accuracy drop as well, which Persian will not appreciate. It will, however, munch on its berry and restore 50% of its health here. But unfortunately Persian is now facing down both Tapu Koko and Tapu Fini, and I believe it missed its attack there. Tapu Koko does go for a Thunderbolt into Persian and will pick up Game 1 for Arash.
Yeah, I believe it was going for the parting shot there, and it wouldn't reduce because there was nothing to switch out to. So
no, of course.
Really well played from Arash, a really dominant performance there, really being able to control that Snorlax in a good way, and that's something that Pal is needing to really start to work his way through in his head, like to figure out that matchup. The issue being is that he probably doesn't want to lead off with Tapu Koko, because then Whimsicott gets access to Gigavolt Havoc and can start dealing big damage from there. Like the Z-Nature power is quite disruptive.
It really is, like I've said before, Whimsicott is just such a troublesome Pokemon. But as you mentioned with the electric terrain, not only would it convert it into a Thunderbolt, but it's going to get the boost as well from that electric terrain, just making it even more powerful. Arash in that game, really, really well played. I mean, he just shows why he is a previous world champion there. Being able to get his Tapu Fini in a position that it could just close out that game, as long as it hit its Muddy Waters. But, you know, Arash and his Tapu Fini seem to get on quite well, and he agreed, I will hit them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key points. If your Pokemon loves you and will hit your attacks for you, that really does help. I know that a lot of people thought that Arash's Jumpluff in 2016 had a lot of love for him, being able to hit a lot of sleep powders back then.
It definitely did, and sadly my Gigalith never loved me.
Oh no.
But we are jumping back into Game 2 here, so just a quick recap on the teams. We've got on Pal's side of the field Mimikyu, Snorlax, Persian, Tapu Koko, Kartana and Arcanine. And on Rash's side of the field we have the Whimsicott, Tapu Koko, Garchomp, Arcanine, Tapu Fini and Celesteela.
It'll be interesting to see if Kartana makes an appearance for Pal here, just because it does outspeed that Tapu Fini and threaten damage, super effective damage on both Whimsicott if it's carrying Smart Strike, and also onto Tapu Fini with Leaf Blade. But Arcanine then becomes even more of a problem for him to deal with going into the last stages of the match, and it also kind of goes against his Trick Room orientation here. So he's just going to stick with that lead that he had before of the Mimikyu and the Snorlax.
Stick with the two best friends of Mimikyu and Snorlax, which is what he has brought to the field, as Arash has decided to bring his Arcanine and Tapu Koko, another quite common lead that we do often see paired up together. It'll be interesting to see now whether Pal's going to maybe try and go for these Trick Room shenanigans, but again, that Arcanine, it could still possibly have Raw.
Yeah, that's a key thing that Pal needs to try and figure out without wasting a strategy that he has. So the Raw going on to either the Snorlax or Mimikyu trying to set up Trick Room would be quite disastrous here. Tapu Koko threatening a lot of damage as well. If it has the Life Orb item, then it's going to be doing some massive damage in electric terrain, and Pal doesn't really have any good switch-ins to be able to deal with that amount of damage. Snorlax should be able to survive. It's very bulky and has a lot of good special defense, so that might be an option here. But Tapu Koko might also want to opt to just break the disguise of Mimikyu while it can, and allow Snorlax to set up, maybe bring in the Whimsicott to then trap it with an Encore. Lots of different ways that Arash can try and deal with this turn.
Definitely, Tapu Koko looking so strong here, and it goes for a Dazzling Gleam. Going to do a small amount of damage onto the Snorlax, but most importantly, break that disguise on Mimikyu. It does take some Life Orb recoil, showing the power of the moves that it has. And we see the Z move come out here. It's going to be the Ghostium Z coming out from that Mimikyu. Could we quite possibly be seeing the Z Destiny Bond once again?
You'd imagine so. It does give him a good way to try and get rid of this Arcanine if it does do enough damage to be able to knock out with something like a Flare Blitz. A really nice option to have to be able to help this Snorlax set up. So Arcanine will take the bait and go into that slot with a Flare Blitz.
It will pick up the one-hit KO there on Mimikyu, but very sadly for Arash, his Arcanine that just fired off such a brilliant Flare Blitz is going to fall fate to that Destiny Bond. So 2 KOs on the field here. Both players are now at 3 Pokemon as Snorlax does a little dance and belly drums.
Yeah, having a little boogie there, going to eat some snacks and get back up there. So really taking the party to Pal's side of the field. But Arash, again, in a position where his Pokemon are outspeeding Snorlax. If he brings in the Whimsicott here, he can Encore it into belly drum to basically neuter that Pokemon for several turns. So Pal needs to figure out a way of stopping that, and Persian seems like a good one.
I was about to say, if you've got the Alola Potion in the back, this is now the time to bring it. As you were saying in Game 1, with the variations we see of this team, often you just set up Snorlax and then you have your other Pokemon protect it so it can do what Snorlax does best, and that's exactly what Pal is doing here. Bringing in his Persian to threaten that Whimsicott with the Fake Out is a great play.
So now, if you're Persian, do you Fake Out or do you Feint? So do you expect a double Protect just to waste the Fake Out and then be the fastest things again for Arash, or do you go for a Feint and then a return or another attacking move on Snorlax to be able to knock out the Whimsicott to stop the trap?
It's all about mind games here and what you feel as a player. Go with your gut and see what you're going to do. The Whimsicott here does go for a Protect, as does Tapu Koko. So double Protect on Arash's side, playing the defensive for this turn, as Persian targets down that Whimsicott with, I believe, the Fake Out. And Snorlax, I didn't quite see what Snorlax's move was, but it did go into a Protect.
Yeah, it was actually the Frustration, I believe.
It was Frustration there. So Snorlax, having just had this little party, is now frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's frustrated that it's got to deal with this Whimsicott, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of threats coming out from Arash's side of the field, and the double Protect was very nice there, just to stop Persian from being Snorlax to be able to pick up a cheeky knockout here from the help from the Fake Out. And again, so Whimsicott now unable to lock Snorlax into belly drum. Snorlax is able to free to attack here. We could be seeing a Z move from this Whimsicott to try and get Snorlax down to as low health as possible so Tapu Koko can pick up the knockout. Persian has access to Quash, so it could be using that onto the actually no, it wouldn't be able to outspeed either of these Pokemon, which is the issue with Z-Nature Power being a priority attack.
Whimsicott just one of those crazy Pokemon, and it was threatening so hard with the Encore as well on both the Persian and the Snorlax there. Snorlax does go for a Protect, and we do see the Z move, as you quite rightly predicted there, Jay, come out from Arash's Whimsicott. So it is going to be the Z-Nature Power. In that lovely yellow electric terrain, it is going to turn into Gigavolt Havoc. Such a powerful Z move here with a joyful animation.
Yeah, Whimsicott looks so happy as it does it as well. It's like, hey Snorlax, I got you a present. And it is going into that Snorlax slot, so a really nice Protect on Power side of the field, but it's a nice Protect for this one turn, and maybe a few future turns from this Whimsicott if it chooses to Encore it here. So with Persian being able to get off the help me out here, Lou.
The parting shot?
Thank you, parting shot, there we go. Yeah, the parting shot onto the Tapu Koko, which limits its damage output. Pal in a position now where Snorlax might be able to take 2 attacks.
Definitely. I mean, getting Persian off the field as well means that Pal is going to be able to reset that Fake Out for later in the game, which will be able to help that Snorlax out even further. We see him bring in his Tapu Koko, so both Tapu Kokos on the field here now, threatening good damage on all Pokemon, but again, that Whimsicott with the priority.
Yeah.
Encore, as you said, it could go into the Snorlax slot here, and just, even though Snorlax, it would just shut it down, to be honest, and that's exactly what we see. So even though it wouldn't be taking any damage, it could just be locked into Protect, as Tapu Koko goes for a Dazzling Gleam into both of Arash's Pokemon, doing some good damage there. And Arash's Tapu Koko going to retaliate with a Volt Switch into Pal's Tapu Koko, dealing itself a little bit of recoil with the Life Orb. But it's going to go back to Arash, take a little bit of a break, and it'll be interesting to see what he's going to do, because we still don't know what his 4th Pokemon is.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. We could see, it's going to be the Garchomp, which is very, very nice here for Arash to be able to threaten damage onto that that Tapu Koko, Whimsicott in a position where it can just deal, it can still just start dealing damage to that Snorlax. Snorlax doesn't want to lose its boost, but we'll probably have to switch out here. Persian will coming in, will take a Thunderbolt and still take a big super effect, not super effects, big special attack damage onto it. So Snorlax forced to switch out here, losing its boosters in the process.
Quite rarely, as you said, Snorlax does have to leave the field, and we see that a Alolan Persian come back once again. Whimsicott goes for a Protect, doesn't want to take any damage, but Garchomp here. Garchomp does go for Earthquake, so it's going to connect onto both of these Pokemon, I think revealing Choice Scarf here, and it connects into both of Pal's Tapu Koko and Persian and picks up the KO on that Tapu Koko.
Yeah, very sneaky Garchomp, quite fashionable as well, so the Choice Scarf being revealed, taking that knockout on Tapu Koko, and the options for Pal are really just being taken away left, right and centre. Whimsicott staying on the field here is interesting as well, just because he protected itself so he wouldn't take any additional damage he didn't need to. Snorlax might be able to knock it out with a Frustration this turn if there's a Fake Out that goes into that slot before it can do anything, but Garchomp and Tapu Koko in the back is difficult for Pal to deal with.
Definitely. I mean, Garchomp is just such a strong Pokemon, and Persian, although it could keep firing off parting shots and reducing the attack of Garchomp, Garchomp can easily, at this point, still switch out and reset all of its stats. So Persian can always go for the Fake Out. If it goes into Garchomp, it's going to hurt itself with a little bit of Rough Skin, so it may not want to be doing that with its pretty cat claws. And it's just going to be interesting to see what Snorlax goes for here. Both the players really taking their time in these games, not wanting to waste a single second of concentration, focus, and evaluating what their opponent's going to do. Whimsicott, however, is going to leave the field for Arash's Tapu Koko, going to bring that electric terrain back to the field that we've enjoyed so much in this game.
Yeah, that's a really nice switch there, because if the Fake Out goes into that slot, Tapu Koko might be able to survive a combination of a Frustration and a Fake Out. We're actually just going to see the Earthquake onto its own. Like, Garchomp didn't retreat there, so the Choice Scarf is going to knock out his own Tapu Koko and get some big damage off onto this Persian, activating its Berry as well.
Definitely. I mean, that's the one drawback of having a Choice Item. You are locked into that move, so he has KO'd his own Tapu Koko as Persian goes for a Foul Play. Going to do huge damage into Garchomp, doing over half its health hit points as Snorlax goes for a Frustration. So this poor Garchomp really taking a battering in this round.
Yeah, and a lot of damage dealt from that Snorlax, but just not enough for Garchomp to be knocked out here. Whimsicott coming in as well, so that Foul Play putting Garchomp in a very precarious position. Whimsicott not going to be the offensive powerhouse to be able to deal with this game. Garchomp obviously will be going for the Earthquake. That's regardless.
It's going to do
some, yeah, exactly. It's going to do some big damage to this Snorlax. So you imagine Whimsicott's probably going to protect here, and one of Pal's Pokemon will deal with this Garchomp.
Definitely, like as we said with that Garchomp, it has no choice. It's Choice Scarfed. It has to go for Earthquake here, so Whimsicott is going to need to protect if it doesn't want to take any damage from its partner Pokemon here. Snorlax is going to be quite threatened by sort of the Earthquake coming off there, and Persian just, that Foul Play did so much damage. I really didn't expect it to do that much.
Yeah, I mean, the training going into Choice Scarf Garchomps is very inclined towards offensive physical attack.
And speedy.
Yes, exactly. So you have the option to be able to put put a lot of attack investment into your training there. And we see the celebration coming out from Arash. It's going into the Thunderbolt into Snorlax.
And it gets the paralysis as well. We've got a very happy Arash there as the Earthquake comes out from the Garchomp. Going to connect with all three Pokemon, does pick up the KO on the opposing Snorlax, but unfortunately it's not enough to take down that Persian, and Whimsicott, it takes that Earthquake like an absolute champ. Persian here goes for the Foul Play into Garchomp and will pick up the KO from our Choice Scarfed Dragon Pokemon over there, and it lives on 1 HP. That is incredible, this amazing little kitty cat.
But a very smart end game for Arash there, where he made the assumption that Snorlax would not protect. He managed to force, make the double target work in his favour. Persian, usually his only attacking move would happen to be Foul Play. So Whimsicott doesn't take too much damage from that at all, because it's a special attacker predominantly, has a low physical attack stat, and is a Fairy type. So look how much damage this will do. This won't do too much at all. And Whimsicott just going to go straight for the Moonblast here. Super effective damage onto that Alolan Persian for the knockout. And Arash Amati, again, staying clean, 5-0.
That was an absolutely incredible game, and again you can just see the camaraderie coming out from both these players. They're both laughing at the quality of that game. It was amazing, and I think Pal, I mean, he played incredible as well, and it's no sort of you shouldn't feel bad about losing to a player like Arash, and I feel like he's probably going to take that in his stride going into the next couple of games, and Arash just there, our winner here of round 5, and just showing he is incredible. Yeah,
he really is, and I think Pal did very well to make sure that he could keep up in that game. He had a real tough matchup with the Whimsicott being so controlling and being basically the original prankster for locking things in with Encore and making sure that he could just be as much of a nuisance as possible. And yeah, so Snorlax being so heavily controlled really meant that the crux of Pal's team just couldn't get going.
Definitely. Pal had a really clear strategy with the Mimikyu and Snorlax. He wanted to get that Snorlax set up and then just protect it so that it could steamroll through Arash's team. But unfortunately, Arash, probably just because he's just such an experienced veteran of Pokemon, he just knew how to counteract it. And in that game 1 as well, managed to get his Tapu Fini in a position where it could close out the game, and in this game he managed to get it with that Garchomp and Whimsicott. So just showing that his experience, he really brought that to the table, and he's still going on his unstoppable streak.
Yeah, very, very powerful early season performance from Arash, and I'm sure he's going to be very happy with how he's performed today. But I think one of the key moments in that final, I mean, that final turn was still
epic.
The penultimate turn with the option to use Nature Power to go into Thunderbolt and target down that Snorlax. He needed that amount. He needed that amount of damage. He really needed to make sure that he had the ability to knock out the Garchomp with the Earthquake, and it was smart of him to switch in that Tapu Koko. I know a lot of people will maybe question the fact that he knocked out his own Tapu Koko, but it wasn't necessary for the end game that he had in mind.
He was thinking ahead, and he managed to adapt his strategy. Although it was a shame he managed to KO his own Tapu Koko, it needed to be done. Tapu Koko sacrificed himself so that Arash could get the victory.
Yeah, and sometimes that's really important, like having the foresight to know that, okay, the Pokemon that I have available to me, one of them at the moment isn't so useful in this end game. I mean, you can always cuddle it out with your Pokemon afterwards. They understand that to win the game, it makes sense to sometimes make decisions that don't always have the most logic down them, and it really worked out in Arash's favour. Like he thought it through. It was like, okay, Tapu Koko will not win me this game. Whimsicott is the way. Let's just clear the field, and then get the Whimsicott into a position where it comes in safely, doesn't take too much damage from the Snorlax, and can really just start to put the work in. Definitely,
and that's just something you will gain with experience. And speaking of experience, I believe that we will be going into another game for you guys here on the stream. We are aware
I think.
Ooh.
Yep.
Bear with me a moment. I've got some information on here. We have actually got.
Oh, sorry, I think we're just going to get our team sheets now.
Oh.
So okay. Cool. So it's actually going to be where are our team sheets? Oh, unfortunately, no. This is
Lewis and Miguel.
Yeah. So we're just going to wait for a little bit of information on which players we have on our teams and be able to bring that second game to you.
There are so many great games here. We want to make sure we pick a good one for you.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're going to go straight into it. So sorry, Andrea Filiberto Di Francesco and Diego Montes. So Italian versus Spain. Once again, Diego's 1 up in this game, and we can see that we have the Tapu Koko going for a Volt Switch in this turn.
We do see for Diego, he has got his Gigalith and his Arcanine out on the field, where Andrea has got, well, he did have his Tapu Koko there, but it's left the field from a Volt Switch, paired up with that Porygon 2.
Yeah, so Kartana coming in its place now is going to be able to threaten this Gigalith. I'm interested to see if we actually have Trick Room up on this turn.
We'll be able to see that, I'm sure, in the next turn, whether that Gigalith and Porygon 2 are being the speediest things out on the field. Arcanine firing off a powerful Flare Blitz into Porygon 2. As a Stone Edge comes out from that Gigalith, does connect on the Kartana, not going to be dealing too much damage, so that was a great switch from Andrea, who previously did have the Tapu Koko in that slot. Kartana can easily handle a Stone Edge from Gigalith.
Yeah, so nice switch in there to get the resisted hit from on the Grass-type Pokemon, and Grass and Steel-type, so it's very, very easy there. And Arcanine in a position now where it does threaten this Kartana. Gigalith is very heavily threatened by the Leaf Blade, so Kartana really needs to either protect or switch out once again, but Gigalith is just going to leave the field instead.
Yeah, Gigalith really fearing a Leaf Blade coming out from that Kartana, leaves the field for Diego's own Tapu Koko. We do see the Electric Terrain surge across onto the field, as Kartana goes for just a Detect here, doesn't want to take any damage from Diego's Arcanine. Arcanine does target it down, so that Detect was really well played there by Andrea. as we do see frustration come out there from the Porygon 2. Not very happy with the Arcanine there, it seems, and doing a little bit of damage to the Arcanine.
Yo, yeah, it just wants to stop the damage coming out onto his Kartana buddy. And a nice play from Andrea in there, just to bait in an attack from Arcanine and start chipping away at it. That frustration damage is not insignificant. Tapu Koko on the field now outspeeds both Kartana and the Porygon 2 on Andrea's side of the field, so he needs to react to the amount of speed that's coming out in that slot. So Kartana has detected, it won't be able to do such again. If it switches out, there could be a nice opportunity for Diego to double target that slot.
Definitely, and I think as well it's important just to mention for the viewers just tuning in, Diego is one game up here as well. So at the moment both players, they've got 3 Pokemon on the field, 3 Pokemon still intact. So at the moment it's quite a little balanced game, and we will see the Tapu Koko here.
Ooh, hidden power.
Ooh, hidden power into that Kartana. I'm pretty sure that was hidden power fire, a nice little tech we often see on a lot of Pokemon for taking down Kartana. As Arcanine goes for
Toxic.
Oh, Toxic into that Porygon 2. That's a really great move to be using on such a bulky Pokemon. Nice little tech there from Diego. As Porygon 2 goes for a recover. So it says, you want to Toxic me and whittle away my health? I'll give you more to whittle away.
Yeah, that's a powerful turn from Diego there. I think it all went in his favour a little bit. I don't think Andrea was expecting that HP fire, the hidden power fire at all there. Leaving his Kartana in, hoping just to maybe soak up a Thunderbolt and then deal some damage back. Or maybe try and get a Sacred Sword off onto that Arcanine, more importantly, to alleviate that amount of stress from there. But the Hidden Power Fire really doing a lot of work. Tapu Koko coming in once again. So this is Andrea's final 2 Pokemon. He's in such a rough position, especially with Porygon 2 on a Toxic timer now. And with 3 Pokemon on Diego's side of the field, he can switch up his strategies a lot. He can protect with both of these Pokemon now as well, so just to stall out a few more turns for this Porygon 2, maybe force it into a recover cycle to stay in this game.
Exactly, we do see the Arcanine just go for a Protect there, trying to stall out the Porygon 2. We see Skydrop come out from the Tapu Koko, however. Both Tapu Koko is going to be flying up in the sky, and I missed what the Porygon 2 did.
It was going for an attack into the Tapu Koko, but the Skydrop avoided it.
They're just flying. These Tapu Kokos just deciding to leave the field, fly up in that electric sky that we've got going on right now.
Yeah, it's a lovely place to be, and I think it's a really powerful strategy from Diego to get that Toxic down now and start wasting turns, just making sure that Andrea cannot capitalise on his board positioning.
Indeed, and the Tapu Kokos have now returned to Earth, and the Tapu Koko has landed, gets a hit with a Flare Blitz from the Arcanine, and is surviving on 3 hit points. So Tapu Koko there really holding on for Andrea. Arcanine munches on its berry, regains 50% of its health as Porygon 2 goes for another frustration here into the Tapu Koko this time, taking it down to almost 50 HP. However, Porygon 2 is going to start really suffering to that Toxic now.
Yeah, and that starts to put Andrea in a position where he has to start recovering soon. Otherwise, he's just going to be in a position where Toxic's going to do the work for him. Tapu Koko taking not too much damage from that frustration there, and running both Hidden Power and Skydrop could be indicative of an Assault Vest once again. We see the Thunderbolt coming out into the Arcanine though, and it does survive.
It does, really powerful Thunderbolt there, and it does also get the paralysis on that Arcanine, revealing the Life Orb there on Andrea's Tapu Koko. Unfortunately will KO itself, leaving him with just his Porygon 2. Hidden Power Fire coming off once again from Tapu Koko into Porygon 2 as Arcanine fires off another really powerful Flare Blitz. This poor little Porygon 2 is getting an absolute beating from Diego's team.
Yeah, really driving the hammer now, and the frustration once again into that Tapu Koko. It's going to survive here. Arcanine has done the work with that Toxic and really made it difficult for Porygon 2 to be able to do much here.
It really did, and as you can see, the Toxic damage there really affecting Porygon 2. It's just clinging on. I think it's only got a few hit points left on there, only 3. So I really think Diego has been able to close out this game tremendously.
Yeah, a really nice position there for Diego, and you can see the forfeit coming out there, and we're only there